There are 7 celebrities who perfectly represent each of the 7 deadly sins through their actions and behavior. Pride is the perfect place to start because it is often considered the root of all sins, driving individuals to place themselves above others. In the worst cases, it's comparing yourself to God.
Everybody says, who does he think he is? I just told you who I thought I was, a god. I just told you. That's who I think I am.
Kanye West perfectly fits the definition of pride, not only because he is claimed to be the greatest artist of all time.
The greatest artist that God has ever created is now working for him.
Referring to his work directly for God now that he makes Christian music, but also because he stole the spotlight from Taylor Swift by interrupting her speech to suggest that she shouldn't have won and that the best female video actually belonged to Beyoncé for Single Ladies.
Music, so thank you so much for giving me a chance to win a VMA award.
Yo, Taylor, I'm really happy for you. I'm gonna let you finish, but Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time. One of the best videos of all time.
This speaks volumes about the pride that consumes Ye's mind, because his actions weren't really about giving recognition to Beyoncé or taking it away from Taylor. It was about making himself the center of attention. He once again demonstrated his arrogance and narcissism when he claimed that this moment catapulted Taylor Swift to fame and that she should basically thank him for giving her a career. Kanye's pride doesn't erase the fact that he is one of the most influential and important musicians of all time, and the truth is, his egocentric behavior is common in the world of rap, where crowning yourself as the best is almost mandatory. But Kanye has shown that his behavior, acting as if he were truly on par with God, has gotten out of hand. The clearest evidence is his song, I Am a God, where he repeatedly claims to be a god and pretends to have a conversation with Jesus. In this song, Ye raises himself to the level of a deity, insinuating that he has a direct connection with Jesus. This narrative aligns with his transition to Christian music, as Ye has stated that his Christian faith is a central part of his identity and that he feels God has given him a mission. The problem with believing you're God, aside from being extremely arrogant, is when your behavior is affected by these delusions of power. In Kanye's case, it has turned him into a rude celebrity who believes everyone should be grateful just for his presence. This is evident in his habit of arriving late to all his appointments, or even not showing up at all, earning him the reputation of being one of the most difficult celebrities to deal with, always showing that the sin of pride follows his every step, just as an insatiable desire to satisfy carnal needs follows the next celebrity. The sin of lust is described as an excessive desire for physical pleasure, an overflow of passions where gratification is pursued without moderation and without regard for others. This perfectly sums up Dan Bilzerian, who has built his entire persona around showing off his Playboy lifestyle on Instagram. No matter how absurd or unrelated the situation, whether he's writing his autobiography or just relaxing at home, there always seems to be a half-naked model laid across his lap, making it his unmistakable trademark.
He objectifies women on a mainstream platform, normalizing women as background rather than as actual human beings. In other words, you make women, according to them, props.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I said the same thing about Hugh Hefner, right? I don't know. I just take pictures and the women are there.
This kind of life seen through a phone screen sends a very clear message. Money gives you access to women. That's why his philosophy led him to gain millions of followers who wanted to know everything about him, which made Dan even more excessive with the image he wanted to present because he understood what his audience of impressionable teenagers wanted to see and hear.
I fucked 9 times in one day. So one time I had a threesome and I fucked 6 of the girls. So that was 6 right there, but I only got off like twice. Right. You know what I'm saying? But then there was times that I fucked 9 actual full times in a day.
The problem with Dan is that he has dehumanized women with his lust-driven lifestyle to the point where he feels he can hit them when they don't do what he wants. Like on his 34th birthday, when a woman attempted to join him on the podium where he was dancing, he didn't hesitate to kick her directly in the face, brutally knocking her down. This wasn't just a reckless act, it was a shocking display of how far he would go to assert his dominance and objectify women, treating them as mere obstacles in his quest to maintain control. According to his version, he hit her because she first got into a fight with his companion, and he had to do what was necessary to separate them, with necessary meaning kicking her in the face, because his 190 pounds couldn't handle the difficult task of separating two models.
Yeah, I did what I had to do. You know, I got the girl off my girl.
But this isn't the only time Dan has been violent with a woman. There's also the occasion when he threw a model off a roof into a pool and broke her foot. The model later filed a lawsuit, revealing that Dan was the one who suggested the stunt, even though she told him she wasn't qualified to do something like that, and also, he never apologized for the harm he caused her. This incident highlights how Dan Bilzerian doesn't just see women as objects of pleasure, but also as accessories. Still, he believes that he doesn't use women for his own benefit. In fact, for a long time, he claimed that they all came to his house because they wanted to be with him, and that this meant they were actually using him for various purposes.
You don't think you use them?
I feel like a lot of times girls are using me. Like a lot of times girls use me to get back at their boyfriends or to piss off an ex, or I get used all the time.
But some time ago, it was revealed that much of Dan Bilzerian's life was a sham. The models who appeared on his social media weren't there out of admiration or desire, but because he paid them to participate in his spectacle of lust and excess. This discovery exposed how his obsession with lust led him to see women as mere accessories to build his Playboy image. For Dan, women stopped being people and became props to satisfy his insatiable need for power and validation. This relentless pursuit of validation through satisfaction reveals how easily lust can evolve into greed, where the desire for more becomes an endless hunger that consumes the next celebrity. The sin of greed is characterized by an insatiable desire for more, whether it's money, power, or control, often at the expense of ethical principles and integrity. MrBeast, known for his philanthropy and extravagant challenges, may seem like the last person to fall into the sin of greed. After all, he's built a reputation on helping others, whether it's by reconstructing entire villages, providing electricity to remote areas, or even restoring the sight of those who couldn't afford it. These actions paint a picture of someone deeply committed to making the world a better place. However, recent controversies suggest that there may be more to the story, starting with MrBeast's infamous giveaways, which many now believe may have crossed the line into illegal territory. Former employee Dogpack404 claimed that some of these giveaways required fans to purchase merchandise to enter the contests, effectively turning them into illegal lotteries.
And during those 5 hours, I counted 46 illegal lotteries. These lotteries are also run poorly. Multiple times they would say something like, buy in the next 5 minutes for a chance to win. And then 7 minutes later go, actually, the newest order in 30 seconds is going to win.
Defenders of MrBeast insist that the rules were clear and that no laws were broken, but encouraging young fans, many of whom look up to him, to spend money for a chance to win prizes could be seen as exploiting their admiration. And it doesn't stop there. In the same video, Dogpack404 revealed that a member of the MrBeast team was caught signing merchandise with his signature.
So Tyler signs MB, which is MrBeast's signature. Then he covers it, signs his own initials, TC, smirks, looks around, and then quickly slides the shirt away. Could you make it any more obvious?
This paints a picture of someone more interested in making a profit than in genuinely giving back, suggesting that greed might be starting to overshadow his original intentions. And also, his connections raise questions about his ethical and greedy decisions. Jake Weddle, a former employee, revealed that Jimmy had hired a registered sex offender, RSO, despite having this information beforehand.
Go to prison, you get rehabilitated, that's one thing. You know, like if you do your time, that's fine. I think there should be rehabilitation in this country. But that guy, from what I hear, I can't confirm or deny, from what I hear, he's on the registry for doing some not great stuff to some underage people. And they knew that.
This story was confirmed by Jake the Viking, who said, yes, Delaware is my brother-in-law. Yes, he is a RSO. When he was 21, a 16-year-old girl accused him and others of SA when she was 11. Before being hired, Delaware sat down with Jimmy and Sue, Jimmy's mom, and explained to them everything. So yes, Jimmy knew. And while this story alone is troubling, it isn't the first time that Jimmy's associations have caused concerns. His best friend, Ava Chris Tyson, committed some of the worst acts under the protection of the MrBeast brand. 8 years ago, Ava reached out to a winner of one of Jimmy's giveaways and later offered him a job as a moderator for Discord and his Twitch streams. Gradually, this Discord group filled up with young teens aged 14 to 16, with whom Ava developed an unprofessional and inappropriate relationship.
He would also frequently bring up sexual topics that was definitely not appropriate to bring up around 15, 16-year-olds, especially with him being like 20, 21 years old. He would also frequently call me dad and daddy, as well as the others.
Long story short, these Discourse messages were leaked, making it clear that Chris abused her power and her connection to MrBeast to create this creepy closeness that no 20-year-old should have with boys under 18. This controversy quickly turned toward Jimmy, as Chris was his best friend and a collaborator with the brand since day one. It's inevitable to wonder how much he knew about the disgusting preferences of someone he lived with during that time. One of the reasons many believe MrBeast knew is his participation in the infamous Discord group. Of course, this doesn't necessarily mean he knew, because being in a group doesn't imply being aware of everything, especially when you're someone so busy. However, it doesn't completely eliminate the suspicion. Even though MrBeast publicly condemned Chris and quickly cut her off from his brand, there are still doubts. Was he more focused on protecting his growing empire in the past, rather than doing what was right? Together, these accusations start to build a different picture of MrBeast, one where the pursuit of more, whether it's influence, money, or control, might be taking precedence over the principles he once stood for. And as the empire grows, the line between generosity and greed becomes increasingly blurred. The sin of gluttony is often misunderstood as simply an excessive appetite for food, but it goes beyond that. Gluttony involves any behavior where the pursuit of satisfaction leads to excess, whether it's food, drink, or substances, is about seeking comfort or escape through consumption, often to the point of causing harm. For Mac Miller, gluttony was about his struggle with substances. It wasn't a flaw in his character or a sign of weakness, but a response to the deep pain he carried. He turned to drugs and alcohol as a way to cope with the pressures of fame, the expectations of others, and his own internal battles.
It started by me just sitting inside all day, and then it's like, then you get bored. Then you're like, well, I could just be high and I could have a whole adventure in this room. I'm always like, if someone's like, you want to try this? I'm like, yeah, sure. And then it just kind of fucks you up when you have a bunch of money, because like you try a drug, you like it, then you can buy a lot of it, you know? So I went through about everything.
Mac's journey with substances began in his teenage years. Although it didn't turn into an addiction at that time, it wasn't until his career took off that his use escalated as a way to deal with the overwhelming stress of his growing success. The fame that many dream of, for Mac, was a double-edged sword, bringing both happiness and pressure.
I definitely was going through a drug problem and I think it was more my state of mind. I was just pretty depressed, as everyone.
Even while successful?
Yeah, I think it started.
With success?
Yeah. It's funny because you talk to people and they say, you know, what do you have to be depressed about? You have money and da 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 da. Fame is tricky because you read what's said about you, then you know what you know to be true, and the lines start to blur.
From the moment he achieved fame until the end of his days, Mac always spoke openly about his addictions, even making it a part of his art. In his mixtape Faces, he delved deeply into his darkest moments, using music as a way to channel his pain into something meaningful. He often expressed that, despite the toll drugs took on him, there was a bittersweet comfort in knowing that his suffering allowed him to create. For Mac, the pain was real, but if it meant he could make something beautiful out of it, there was a sense of purpose in the chaos.
You know, I'm not gonna take anything away from the shit that I went through to make these albums. I'm not gonna write them off just because I was on drugs, because I went through too much emotionally and mentally and negative against me physically to act like it was for nothing.
But the impact of his addiction wasn't just emotional. It affected every part of his life. In May 2018, just months before his passing, Mac was arrested for DUI after crashing his car in Los Angeles, losing control of the vehicle and hitting a power pole, which caused significant damage. He and his 2 passengers fled the scene but were later apprehended at his home, where he confessed to the crime. As a result of the DUI, Mac faced serious legal consequences, including potential jail time. The incident also led to a suspension of his driver's license and sparked a lot of negative attention, further complicating his already challenging battle with addiction.
There's been a lot of talk about me being on drugs. Look at me, do I look like I'm on drugs to you? Not on drugs. Drugs are on me. Alright.
This happened just days after his breakup with Ariana Grande, a relationship that lasted 2 years and brought him much happiness but also significant pressure as the public scrutiny intensified when his fame merged with one of the most popular pop singers at the time. And although Grande did everything she could to get him into rehab, Mac didn't relent. It was incredibly difficult for him to live without substances.
At one point, weed didn't relax me from everything. It made me more paranoid about all the shit happening, right? So like, I needed to get a drug that was a little more numbing, if you will, and less like in your head. So yeah, I think that's really what sparked me doing other drugs, is because I hate being sober.
On September 7th, 2018, Mac Miller's fight came to a tragic end. He was found unresponsive in his home, victim of an accidental overdose involving fentanyl, cocaine, and alcohol. His death shook the world and served as a painful reminder of the dangers of addiction. Despite the struggles he faced, Mac Miller was fully aware of the dangerous path he was on. He often spoke about the harsh realities of addiction, rejecting the idea that there was anything glamorous or legendary about it. For Mac, the notion of being remembered as a tragic figure due to an overdose was something he wanted to avoid at all costs.
I'd rather be the corny white rapper than the drugged out mess who can't even get out of his house. Overdosing is just not cool. There's no legendary romance. You don't go down in history because you overdosed. You just die.
The sin of gluttony, as it relates to Mac, was not a simple desire for excess, but a complex and deeply human response to pain. His story is a reminder of how the pursuit of relief can lead to a cycle of self-destruction. Something similar happens with the next deadly sin, which, like gluttony, in its quest to relieve anger, ends up increasing it even more. The sin of wrath is often described as uncontrolled feelings of anger, rage, and hatred. It's a powerful force that can drive someone to destructive behavior, hurting not just others, but also themselves.
I've been fighting it since I was a kid.
XXXTentacion is a powerful example of how wrath can take hold of a person. From a young age, X was surrounded by violence and chaos. His childhood was marked by instability, with a father in prison and a mother who struggled to care for him.
Me and my mom went through it hard. Like, my mom was just in situations where she couldn't take care of me, you feel me? Like,
one of the most significant moments in X's early life was when he discovered the body of his uncle, who had taken his own life. This traumatic event left a deep scar, further fueling the anger and confusion that had already begun to take root. It was a turning point that added to the weight of the wrath he would carry throughout his life. Of course, all these childhood wounds that had been accumulating needed attention and care, but as X mentions, his mom couldn't take care of him, and we should remember he was only 6 years old. Even so, he tried to get her attention by getting into trouble, and the easiest way to do that was through violence.
So I don't resent her. I would never resent my mom, but like, my mom had it hard, I had it hard, and it's just a very misunderstood. Like,
but you're really young to already have that acceptance. Did you understand? Were you angry at her when you were like a little kid getting put in all these crazy situations?
I chased her. Like I remember I used to beat niggas at school type shit just to like hear my mom yell at me or talk to me.
By this point, violence had already become X's way of communicating, and this became terrifyingly clear when a man tried to harm his mother. Instead of reacting like a typical child, X fought back with shocking intensity, using a shard of glass to stab him.
I stabbed my first nigga. Basically, a nigga tried to put his hands on my mom type shit.
And
like,
you were how young?
I was like 6.
And you stabbed him?
And
with what?
I bit his flesh out and like grabbed the glass shard and like poked him with it type shit, like stabbed him with it. Like,
wow.
When I was like 6, 7.
As X grew older, the conflict and chaos around him didn't settle down. In fact, it only intensified. By the time he reached middle school, the streets had already become a significant part of his life. Growing up in an environment where gang culture and crime were prevalent, it was nearly impossible to avoid getting caught up in it. Inevitably, this led to his first major run-in with the law. X was arrested and sent to juvenile detention while still in middle school, a time when most kids are just beginning to figure out who they are. For X, however, this was his reality, as he was surrounded by violence, anger, and a system that seemed more interested in punishing him than understanding the roots of his wounds.
Were you like getting in trouble all the time, or were you kind of laying low?
Like, I spent a year in jail, bro. Like,
and what did you go in for that time?
Armed robbery, armed burglary,
possession of a firearm,
armed burglary with dwelling, resisting without violence, Grand Theft of 3
Yeah,
charges.
he got a lot of charges.
Possession of oxycodone.
X's early brushes with the legal system were just the beginning of a life that would be marked by increasingly severe encounters with legal trouble. The most significant of these came in 2016 when he was arrested on charges related to his relationship with Geneva Ayala, including allegations of aggravated battery of a pregnant woman, domestic battery by strangulation, false imprisonment, and witness tampering. He eventually managed to secure release from jail in 2017. He was placed under house arrest, a condition that kept him confined yet still connected to the outside world through his music and social media. In March 2018, X was released from house arrest, allowing him to move freely once again. This newfound freedom, however, did not bring peace. The violence that had always been a part of his life continued to follow him, casting a shadow over his every move. On June 18, 2018, the chaos finally caught up with him in the most tragic way. While shopping a bike, he was ambushed and shot in a robbery. The attack was sudden and brutal, leaving him with no chance to defend himself. XXXTentacion died at just 20 years old, a life cut short by the same violence that had been a constant presence. At the end, the anger that he once used as a shield ultimately left him unprotected throughout his life, leading to his tragic end. The next deadly sin is characterized by doing the bare minimum and still expecting results. It's an extreme aversion to work and effort, which is essentially SsniperWolf's content. SsniperWolf, or Leah Shailesh, has the largest reaction channel on YouTube. Basically, her workday consists of getting up, turning on the computer, the microphone, and the camera, and reacting in the most bland way to videos that someone else created with actual effort and dedication.
Oh, the puzzle's almost complete. Just a couple more. Ah! What is that? What is that? What is that? It's moving. Ah!
What makes this so frustrating isn't just the laziness, it's the sheer audacity, because she doesn't even bother to give credit to the original creators. In fact, many have confessed that they didn't give her permission to use their videos because she didn't even contact them to ask.
We reached out to creators who've had their work featured in SniperWolf's videos. And when we asked them if SniperWolf and/or her team had contacted them about featuring their work, every creator said no, they were not contacted. Most of them were blindsided by the fact that SniperWolf had been using their content, and some of them were pretty upset about it.
But what's even more absurd is that SniperWolf gets upset when people point out that her content is the laziest, most uncreative form of entertainment. Like when Jax Films decided to start a channel reacting to her reaction videos as an ironic way to show her how little effort it takes to stole other people's videos and add little to no new value.
I made a new channel called Jax Films. It was a parody of SniperWolf's channel where I reacted to her videos, but in the most drawn-out way possible.
It's minus 57 degrees.
Minus 57 degrees.
Yep, that's what he said. Yep.
Tried to pour a can of Coke.
You tried to pour a can of Coke?
Stop repeating. She's just repeating what they say louder.
Instead of taking this as constructive criticism or a wake-up call, Leah took it personally. She made it clear that she didn't understand the irony behind Jack's channel by posting this comment on Twitter. Jack Films made another channel where he copied my content for a few months, thinking it would blow up and get millions of views. It didn't. Now he is mad. She basically believed that Jack created the channel to make easy money just like her, when in reality, he was pushing for better regulation of this type of content, making it fair for creators who actually dedicate time and effort to their videos. Thanks to Jack, more and more people demanded that YouTube take action, but this also led to increased criticism of SniperWolf, who had become the main face of reaction content creators. The pressure of being at the center of the controversy drove Leah to make the most maniacal decision of all. She drove to Jack's house and doxed him because, in her mind, he was to blame for the wave of hate against her.
All right in front of your house. Come out and talk to me. He has food outside, so he should be out any minute now to pick it up.
It's ice cream as well.
It's ice cream. I just want to talk.
The YouTube community rallied behind Jack, condemning Leah for her reckless and dangerous behavior. It wasn't just about privacy, it was about the principle of using one's influence to intimidate and silence critics. But Leah quickly played the victim card and posted this story. "This creep has been harassing me for months," then plays victim saying, "I threatened him when I just wanted to talk to him. I have no ill intentions. It's so sad when people have to constantly create drama to pay their bills."
She claims in her story that I've been harassing her. No, SniperWolf. I've not been harassing you. At all. In my videos on Jax Films, I've been critiquing her non-transformative commentary, I point out cases of content theft and freebooting, and I credit the creators she steals from. I've been critical of her content, but that does not equate to harassment. What is harassment is coming to our home, sharing it for millions to see, and taunting me to come out.
By this point, YouTube had to step in. In response to the growing outrage, the platform temporarily demonetized Leah's channel, a slap on the wrist considering the gravity of her actions. And despite the support from the community, Jack chose not to pursue legal action, but the controversy still sparked a petition calling for her permanent removal from YouTube. The doxing incident wasn't the only reason Leah felt so cornered. Around the same time, people started digging into her past and uncovered the messy details of her divorce from her ex-husband, Evan Young. The story that emerged painted a picture of a YouTuber who wasn't just lazy in her content creation, but also in her business ethics. It was revealed that during their marriage, Leah and Evan had built the SSSniperWolf brand together, with Evan handling much of the behind-the-scenes work like scripting, editing, and even playing the video games she pretended to be skilled at. When their marriage fell apart, Leah allegedly tried to take full control of the business, locking Evan out of their shared accounts. This move further highlighted her willingness to take shortcuts and avoid putting in the effort herself, a trait that perfectly aligns with the sin of sloth. Envy is a sin that eats away at the soul. It's the deep resentment toward others for what they possess. Envy drives a person to not just want what another has, but to destroy it. And when it comes to Drake, this sin has been at the heart of his conflict with Kendrick Lamar. Drake and Kendrick Lamar were at the center of one of the most iconic rap beefs in history, a clash of identities that went beyond music. It was a battle between authenticity and perceived appropriation, where at the core of it all lay Drake's envy, a desire not just for Kendrick's success, but for the cultural credibility that he naturally embodies. This envy was evident in how Kendrick, known for his deep-rooted cultural identity and lyrical integrity, represented everything that Drake seemed to long for. That's why Kendrick's diss tracks went beyond criticizing his music. They attacked the very foundation of his persona, suggesting that his public image was built on a facade rather than genuine self-expression. In Euphoria, Kendrick goes straight for the jugular, attacking Drake's identity and his place in the culture. He questions his connections to black culture, accusing him of using collaborations with black artists to validate himself. But he goes even harder in Meet the Grams, where Kendrick targets Drake's family, accusing him of being a neglectful father who cares more about his image than his responsibilities at home. This attack goes beyond the usual rap beef. This delves into deeply personal territory, pushing the conflict into a realm where it's not just about music, it's about character. Kendrick's decision to get personal in Meet the Grams wasn't unprovoked. In Family Matters, Drake targeted his relationship, insinuating that he might not even be the father of one of their children, and going as far as to imply that Kendrick beat his wife. Drake possibly did this because he was desperate to deflect attention from the criticisms he had already leveled against him. By dragging Kendrick's personal life into the feud, Drake attempted to shift the focus away from the accusations of cultural appropriation. But he didn't expect Kendrick to hit him as hard as he did with Meet the Grams and his final track, Not Like Us. In Not Like Us, Kendrick took the battle to a new level, not just lyrically, but visually, with a music video that drove home the message. The video wasn't just a collection of clever shots, it was a statement. Kendrick depicted Drake as an outsider, someone who could never truly belong to the culture he so desperately sought to be a part of. He also used the track to highlight how the industry often elevates those who play into its commercialized version of culture, rather than those who genuinely live it. And Drake became the embodiment of this falseness, a figure who latched onto the realness of others because he lacked it himself. He was portrayed as not just an imitator, but as someone whose success was built on the back of the very culture he was disconnected from, a culture he envied and tried to claim, despite never truly belonging to it. At the end, Kendrick didn't just win the lyrical battle, he redefined the narrative, turning Drake's own sin against him.